A-I-D-A. A, attention. Do I have your attention? I, interest. I know that you are interested. D, decision. Have you made your decision for Christ? Action. Honest. In the world of romance, or incurable romantics, they say that in order to find that star-crossed lover, sometimes you have to kiss a lot of frogs until you finally find Prince Charming. And if luck is your thing, then maybe you call that a plan. Hello, my name is Major Mike Webb, and I am a candidate running as an independent for governor of Virginia. And let me tell you why. I've been a lifelong Republican and a conservative. But bottom line, we have a public health crisis, and that apparently has even baffled the scientists. But thanks to my military service, with about 2 decades in special operations, strategic counterintelligence, force projection, and force protection, pandemic crisis is not a novel public health crisis for me. And since the beginning of the lockdowns, unlike any other candidate running for governor, I have actually been in the courts trying to make that argument. We must have a pretty solid argument because we not only have the only cases that have survived dismissal, but have actually caused the Attorney General to attempt to evade the sheriff as well as the United States Marshal, which is actually a felony punishable by up to 20 years in prison for each count, and establishes a pattern of racketeering activity under the RICO Act as well as a conspiracy to violate civil rights. Nobody else running can take credit for anything like that. In a public health crisis, what you do not know about the threat can actually kill you or somebody else. And if you have a developed sense of self-preservation, you probably don't want to be dead. Back when I served in the Ranger Regiment, I had the unique opportunity to deploy to Panama to participate in special training at the Jungle Operations Training Center. And while triple canopy jungle environments present a lot of beautiful and wondrous sights, at least the trainers in the Army knew that if soldiers did not recognize dangers around them, just one dumb mistake could mean the difference between life and death. One of the enduring lessons that we learned was about the very colorful frogs that you may actually encounter in a tropical rainforest, and I came across quite a few. And while man has sufficiently evolved to be able to examine nature and compare various species, he has been able to identify specific patterns that many of the creatures in the jungle, despite years of experience, have not yet quite figured out, to fatal consequences. Nature has provided a signal that at least a person of average intelligence can identify if informed, and if you happen to see very bright colors on an animal and surroundings where everything else looks green or brown, often that is nature's way of telling you to be aware. And were you to notice these cute little frogs, like many creatures in the jungle do, and then happen to attempt to grab it or hold it close because it looks cute and cuddly, it would be the worst mistake that you will ever make in your life, because the pores in its skin produce a toxic nerve agent that can actually kill you. And that's a heck of a price for wanting to kiss a frog. I've been a lifelong Republican and became at first concerned about Republican leaders like Amanda Chase, who are getting people excited by advocating against wearing masks without even understanding whether or not they might be able to protect you. While liberty may be important, and surely it is, the worst thing for a leader to do is to encourage people to do something without doing the homework to be able to explain if there are any associated risks with that choice, and to articulate those so that people could make a choice. And if Amanda actually knew the science, she would have brought that argument to court like we did back in June. The first case to be brought to challenge the facial coverings mandate. An argument was apparently good enough that the nation's only physician serving as a governor, Ralph Northam, decided that his attorney would be safer if he risked a felony count by attempting to evade the United States Marshal. Evidently, the liberal press thought it was so good they decided they weren't even going to mention it. Now Pete Snyder has decided to enter the race by attempting to champion the issue of reopening schools. But any good parent who loves their child would not want to support any plan to reopen schools if their kids were not safe and leaders couldn't assure it. And to date, Pete has not yet articulated any understanding of the threat to children in school. One has only to examine the news accounts, if not the multiple studies, to recognize that children of school age can actually become infected by COVID-19 and can actually die. But if you don't know how to prevent that risk, you may as well be reading tea leaves or making decisions about your child based on the roll of a pair of dice. And maybe you want to do that because you really, really love a candidate more than your child. I will admit that they certainly know how to get people excited and even get them to empty their wallets. But as a retired military officer, where we really don't work for the money, I try my best to make decisions that avoid the unnecessary loss of life. But some folks don't like that kind of religion being mixed with their politics, and perhaps that is their choice. We are quickly approaching a year of the dreaded pandemic in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And a lot of the reason why is because of redundant failures to understand the threat that has been presented. And at least before a novel coronavirus and an evolving science solution, most scientists understood that the best way to defeat an emerging and spreading pathogen is to identify the source of the problem and to take decisive action to defeat it. Go on the offense against the invisible enemy. As the former operations officer for all Army strategic counterintelligence in the continental United States, at least in the Army I know, our job is to fight and win, but only when asked to do so, and you have the choice. My name is Major Mike Webb. By God, I am running for governor of Virginia. And y'all come back now. Here. This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb. A-I-D-A. Attention. Do I have your attention? I, interest. I know that you're interested. D, decision. Have you made your decision for Christ? Action. Honest. And y'all come back now. Yep.